r/AskReddit. Addictive Princess says, what's the best example you have witnessed of someone destroying their own happiness/life? Scotsbird says, my husband's friend had a beautiful wife, gorgeous house, 2 lovely boys, a job he loved, and lots of great friends who loved him. Then he decided at the age of 35 to get into hard drugs. He has been in and out of prison for violent crimes, transportation of large volumes of heroin, attempted murder, burglary and stalking. He is homeless again as he burned down his flat on purpose to get a move. No one will ever talk to him again. He's now 55 and has nothing. His wife divorced him after giving him far too many chances. His sons hate him. His real friends gone forever. All for nothing. Revolutionary Pierce says, that's wild. Like 35 stable life and he just wakes up one morning and is like skip over soft drugs and land me a hardcore heroin addiction with dirty needles and threw it all away. Objectively, I'd say he had serious issues going on all his life and nobody either knew or cared enough. Fortunono says, hey, herons can be incredibly majestic. Elgin Franklin says, some guy at work was caught red-handed stealing AirPods from the locker room. When he was sent to pick up his own kit, before being sent home he excused himself to go to the toilet and took a shit on the floor. The kicker is that we work on an oil rig. It's impossible to get away with theft, and he was a senior technician making really good money. He didn't need the AirPods, he was just stealing for the fun of it. He's now not required back, and all the companies talk to each other. He shat away his career over a pair of AirPods. Anthropomorphic Seer says, my former company hired a safety officer into a really well-paid position. He was smart, personable, and really improved the safety program. He was caught buying gift cards and expensing them. Took down half the department with him, since they were in on it too. I will never understand destroying your career for a few $1,000s. Terpsichorean Wombat says, pretty nearly the same thing happened at my husband's company, not getting deeper into details to avoid it. The thief blew up a 10-year career with the company and is hitting a job market that favors the young at 50 with no usable reference for the last 10 years. The amount stolen was under 5% of their yearly salary. Just really wish I could talk past you out of that B/C, otherwise a good worker and nice person. Parlish Mitch says, my dad. He was a really talented mechanic and the shop foreman. Well liked, made great money, loved his job, owned a nice house in a beautiful neighborhood, in a port town we all loved. Married to a wonderful woman, my mom, had 2 kids. He just couldn't stop drinking. He became abusive and horrible. Lost everything. His house, his job, his family. He drank himself to death when I was 19 and my sister was 17. He died alone. To her enormous credit, after she left, my mom put herself through school and supported us all on her own. She got blacklisted by my dad's family and hers, since the divorce was something they all looked down upon and felt she shouldn't shame the family. They even threatened to gang up on her and lie in court saying she was on drugs. She was not. It was the bravest and best thing she ever cold done for us. At the funeral all these same people just kept telling her how brave she was, and we didn't know how bad he was. 2 years later, my sister and I are both successful, thriving adults with great professions. We have our own families and children, we both own our houses, and have a good income. We're well educated. Our lives are filled with love. It's all thanks to my mom. Over the years I think about my dad from time to time. Having my own children now, a husband, all of whom I love dearly, I can't imagine any scenario I would ever put them through that. I don't feel sad about it anymore. But it's just such a waste. His whole life. And for what? Some liquid in a bottle. Addiction is a terrible thing. Edit to at, my mom is a rockstar. Nice to know the internet thinks so too. The three of us don't have contact with either side of the family anymore, and haven't for a long time. We love our little trio that has grown to include in-laws, grandchildren, and lots of friends. Your family is who you make it. Don't waste time on people who don't love you. Caderon says, your family who blacklisted her can eat shit. Bouncing Bud says, I'll second that. My mum's side of the family blacklisted me for divorcing my then abusive ex-wife. I kind of treat it as the trash itself out, though. I see Establishment 850 says, my brother was offered a really well-paying job doing something he's excellent at. He thought it would be too easy, so he chose a much more challenging job in a less appealing environment with a boss who is a real jerk. He hoped to impress him. Now, he's really unhappy. I just don't understand why he puts himself through this kind of thing. r/AskReddit. Innocent Delight says, what's the most memorable act of kindness you've ever witnessed or experienced? Adorableros03 says, I went to a local breakfast spot after a rough night. Totally forgot my wallet, so I left my phone as collateral and went to my house. Came back and some guy had already paid for me. I know it doesn't seem that big of a deal, but it was a pretty bleak week for me, so it meant a lot. Fluffibanagerald2 says, my grandmother made a ton of birthday cards in advance. After she passed away, I still received birthday cards from her for the next few years. It was a little weird, but it was definitely nice to hear words from her after she passed. Late Law 5048 says, none. People suck. Past Friend 101 says, my first year of high school I was getting bullied heavily about my appearance. One afternoon after school was finished I was walking down the street to clear my head when a little girl came up to me and I was a bit surprised, but this little girl came over to me to tell me that she thought I was so pretty and that she wished she would look like me when she was older. It's not a very big one, but it's the most memorable for me because I think it was the first time I'd gotten called pretty in Moths. Professional Cod 3062 says, once, when I was feeling overwhelmed with work, a friend surprised me with a homemade meal and a heartfelt note, reminding me to take care of myself. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. Therai77 says, while waiting at an airport during a long delay, I saw a traveler offer their seat to an exhausted mother with a crying baby. Whisper 101 says, my first experience as a kid was when my parents would pack clothes, food, and candy, and then we would travel to a very poor area in Mexico. As soon as we drove up, the kids would come running to the car and my father would hand them the candy and tell them to get their abuelo or grandfather. There were cardboard homes everywhere, and I remember a dirty canal nearby. An old man would come out of the refuse to greet my father and accept the meat he had hidden from border security underneath everything else. If anyone ever broke down in town or needed help, my parents were there to help. It left an impression on me as a young boy. I felt bad just asking for a toy when we went shopping. I was thinking about how those kids had nothing. Then my mother said, why don't you pick a toy out for yourself and give all the toys you don't play with anymore to them? Present day, I have a local charity and help people with travel expenses due to cancer or kidney dialysis treatments. Thank you to my parents, whom I'm sure earned their wings. Natalie Xx says, the other night, my area was flooded. I accidentally drove into about 4 feet of water, which thrusted my car into the river. I stood by on the hillside and watched my car luckily be pushed back onto the road, but still in about 2 feet of water. These two gentlemen who saw this happen and were stopped on the other side of the floodplain jumped in my car, put it in neutral, and pushed it out of the water. They waited with me till the police got there. One officer I went to high school with, we weren't close. He came up after hearing the 911 call from one of those men and hugged me for 10 minutes while I cried. Urbanite88 says, I didn't have enough money to pay for all the groceries that I was going to buy. So I started to tell the cashier I needed to put some items back. This lovely lady came out of nowhere and covered the rest of my bill. I started crying and thanking her. She politely told me don't worry about it, I've been there myself. Zigordatakranch says, well, I always smile at people and they smile back sometimes. Funkapus says, someone from Reddit stopped their bots from posting the same questions over and over again, like this one, for a little while. Rankenwright says, I got terrible food poisoning while traveling solo in Thailand. I'm not going to describe what happened, suffice it to say I was grateful for the style of bathroom my room had, which was basically a tile room with a toilet, a shower head and a drain in the floor. The sweet older lady who ran the hostel where I was staying took care of me, going out to buy me soup for my toot toot. Light in the Dark says, I remember when a stranger paid for my groceries when I forgot my wallet. It really restored my faith in humanity. Naturist says, my kid acts like the coolest kid in the room. The most competitive person I have ever seen, from Sparks to sports to Easter egg hunts. He loves winning. I watch him from my window playing basketball with the autistic kid across the street who has some struggles. My son throws games all the time just because it makes the kid so happy. I mentioned it once, he denied it ever happened. So I just watch and take comfort in knowing I didn't raise an asshole. We don't need to talk about it. Just keep doing you. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.